Hello, everyone. My name is Nina Oduro, and as the Senior Advisor for Youth and Leadership at IREX, we are pleased to partner with Making Sense International for the Youth Economic Opportunities 2030. This event is not only important because it focuses on what our changing world of work needs to be more equitable and inclusive, but intentionally puts young women at the center. In a world where young women are marginalized, excluded, and disregarded despite their talent, potential, and undeniable capabilities, it is critical that their own experiences and impact shape solutions to bridge the gender gap evident in the world of work now and in the future. As we discuss what this looks like in Kenya, I challenge us all to consider how we make the future of work female in our programs, communities, regions, and larger world. Beyond this discussion, I'm delighted to share tangible resources that IREX continues to develop on education and economic opportunities, including our Skills for Virtual Gigs initiative resources, including a case study and workbook for youth and facilitators that supports young people's entry and success in virtual gigs and beyond. In addition, our soon-to-be released Connectivity for Learning report aims to give voice to education stakeholders in Kenya on distance learning for hard-to-reach communities. I'd like to now turn to Bantu Kumsa, Associate for the Youth Economic Opportunities 2030, to share more about their work to support youth in the world of work. Then IREX's Sylvia Kananu, Project Lead for Youth Excel, will start our program.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Bantu Kumsa, and I am the Program Associate for GYEO 2030 Initiative. I'd like to say that Making Sense is excited to have IREX host today's GYEO 2030 Solution Fears webinar focused on critical role women play in changing world of work. If we can go to the next slide. First, I would like to briefly provide some context for this and the other GYEO 2030 Solution Series. As many of you may know, since 2007, Making Sense has been convening the Global Youth Economic Opportunity Summit to share learning, develop partnership, and advance economic opportunities for youth. The inequities that COVID and social justice movement have exposed have increased the need to accelerate change, particularly for young people, and has become a turning point for the Global Youth Economic Opportunity Summit agenda. And as a result, we are transforming our approach to fully include young people alongside adults in our activities, which is to ensure that youth are co-designing solutions to their own problems and are not just serving as token representative on the panels. In addition, we will also expand the dialogue beyond just Washington, D.C. and the US, and we seek to host and support convenings around the world that will engage youth and adults locally to discuss solutions to SDG 8 that are relevant in their context. During our 2021-2022, we are doing this through a series of events you see listed on the slide, which includes the youth dialogue, solution questions or webinars on key topics of interest to young people. And we are also doing regional and global convenings, which are all part of a series of near-term activities designed to share the latest GYEO program lessons, and as well as gain commitment from actors globally to advance good practices within a common language and framework of the SDG 8. And it's specifically towards the achievement of the SDG 8, which is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, as well as full and productive employment and decent work for all. We also plan to establish global convenings, our annual touch point to track progress toward achievement of SDG 8. And lastly, if we move on to the next slide, I would like to briefly say thank you for our partners for their financial and in-kind contributions who have joined us on this exciting journey. In addition to IREX today, I specifically want to recognize Palladium, our global session partner, along with FHI 360, as well as CRS, who are our regional session partners. We also want to acknowledge our first two local partners, the Africa Skills Hub and the Latin American Leadership Academy. There are so many organizations joining us every day, so if you are interested in committing to GYEO, I will post our link to the chat below, but Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sylvia, who will provide some context for our session, and as well as introduce our moderator for today's session. So Sylvia, to you.
Thanks so much, Bontu. I'm really excited to be working with you and having this session today. So as we're here to talk about the role of technology and how that expands opportunities for young women and girls, that takes me back to when I was in my years as an earlier youth. So this was right after high school. I did get to learn some basic computer skills. So I feel privileged because my parents were forward thinking. And so they enabled me to take a computer course. And I'd also previously done an internship with a local bank where I had been able to get some stipends, and with all my savings, with the savings I had, I bought a laptop. And so at a time when I was unemployed, I started looking for, a way to get some income, and I learned about even, gig work then. I didn't know it as gig work then. There was a site called Elance, and so I think now it's called, is it Upskill or something like that, but the name has changed since. And so with that, I was able to apply for some freelance work, and I earned an income. I did a lot of writing, and I think as I look back, that was more than the income, was a skill I was able to practice, because that's something I use even in my career today. Lots of writing skills, and analysis, thinking critically. And so for me, and even up to today at this point, the skills, when I think about the value of digital literacy, it opens up so many networks, so many opportunities. When I think about in Kenya, how many people may apply for jobs by dropping CVs manually, and yet a lot of employers are, they source for jobs online. You have to apply online. So if you don't have these skills, how do you apply for jobs? So as I reflect on this, I just think about how many young women do we have in Kenya who don't have digital skills or resources. I was grateful that I was able to have the skill. I had a laptop, which was quite a tool that enabled me to access earning and also earn at the same time. And so I think about how many people miss economic opportunities just because of lacking this skill, these tools, and these resources. And so I'm not here to talk about that topic today. We have quite an able panel for that. And I have the honor of introducing Vivian Onano, who's going to delve more into this topic. She's going to be our moderator for this session. So a little bit about Vivian. So Vivian is the founder of Leading Light Initiative, and is well known for her commitment to leadership and the empowerment of young women. So Vivian does play a role in redefining Africa's growth and development, and this is creating an inclusive world for women and youth to play a leading role. She's an advisor to many organizations that include UNESCO, the Global Economic Monitoring Report, and Concordia Africa. So I believe I haven't yet mentioned that she's an award winner. So we do have an award winner in our midst. So some of the awards that she has, some of the awards that she has won include MTV's 2016 Africa Reimagined Award and Michelle Obama's Let Girls Learn Award. So welcome, Vivian. So glad to have you on this panel, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, for the kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Vivian Onano, as introduced. I'm excited to be a part of today's panel on young women and future of work, how young women are driving inclusion for digital jobs. Thank you very much to IREX International for the opportunity. So this is an all-female panel of doers, thinkers, and innovators who are walking the talk, impacting lives, and contributing to the economy. I can't wait for them to share their stories. So just framing today's panel, as technology expands career opportunities, it is also reinforcing inequities, and that as young women face barriers to access and inclusion in economic opportunities. This panel will discuss the enablers, barriers, and opportunities for young women's participation in tech-enabled or tech-enhanced jobs, as well as highlight innovative solutions led by young women to bridge the gender gap. They will delve into the skills, training, and education and roles that the public and private sector can play in creating equitable opportunities to ensure Kenya's future of work is indeed female. The potential for technology to transform young people's economic lives globally is undeniable. Yet, the rapid pace of technological innovation leads to increasing inequality, which is further accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Gender disparities in the digital economy are stark as young women and girls fall behind their male peers with access to information, tools, and digital devices while navigating stereotypes, biases, and entrenched social norms that reinforce the digital gender divide. Kenya's information and communications technology sector is steadily growing, with online gigs expected to grow by 33% by 2023. While the promise for jobs of youth is immense with this growth, inequity limits young women and girls' access and participation, thus impacting their ability to tap into digital work opportunities to earn and thrive. So what are the solutions, and how are young women and girls themselves dismantling barriers to inclusion in tech and enhanced and tech-enabled jobs? So those are some of the questions that my able panelists are going to delve into today. So please allow me to introduce my panelists. First is Nazrin Ali Mohammed, founder and CEO of Afrikapu. Nazrin is a multiple award-winning social techpreneur, passionate about inclusion of low-income households, especially women and girls. Her mission is to give disadvantaged women a voice through business growth and help them be ambassadors of advocacy issues affecting their communities. Her work has impacted the lives of over 25,000 women micro-entrepreneurs in rural and remote areas of Kenya and South Sudan. Next is Fatma Abdallah. Fatma Abdallah is an alumni of IREX Skills for Virtual Gigs initiative, where she learned how to do online transcription and obtain work online. She's a graduate in economics and finance and has leveraged her experience from the Skills for Virtual Gigs initiative to obtain work as an online transcriber and work toward her long-term professional goals. Next is Elizabeth Mangeni. Elizabeth is a senior trade development officer at the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade, and Enterprise in Kenya. She's passionate about entrepreneurship and has dedicated her career to empowering persons with disabilities, especially women and girls, by promoting entrepreneurship, inclusive job skills training, and programs that educate persons with disabilities on business management and savings. Next is Hadija Abdul. Hadija Abdul is a startup community manager at Google Africa. She's a results-driven, entrepreneurial, and collaborative leader who is passionate about the potential of digital technology to transform lives and create livelihoods in Africa. At Google, she builds strategic partnerships with key players in the public, private, and development sectors to help scale access to digital skills training across East Africa. She oversaw the investment of $1 million in digital skills training programs to support young people, entrepreneurs, and farmers. So welcome to my panelists again. So we'll go straight into the questions for today to start off our discussions. So the first question to all my panelists, please describe to us how you work and why it's important to support young women with digital skills for Kenya's workforce. So Elizabeth, please open the floor.
Thank you so much. So I will start. So I'm a senior trade development officer. And when I started applying for my job as a senior trade development officer, I actually did it online. So we've had in government previously, we used to submit application physically, but then there was that issue of will it really get to the right person or not? So it was really a bit of a challenge. And as a person with disability, because I'm an amputee, you can't access these offices by going to that place. It's a bit far. You are either in a different county. So it was more of a bit of a challenge for me. So my first application, I did it online. It was digital, and it was quite easy, actually. I was able to get the right accommodation because with disabilities, you need the accommodation in order to be able to compete with the rest of the community, especially for those who are deaf. You find they need sign language interpreters. If not for sign language interpreters, they need the captions. Captions actually make it easier for them to apply for these jobs. And those who are visually impaired need these digital skills to be able to access some of these online platforms where you have a certain software that requires your skills in order to be able to access and apply for other opportunities out there. So we always advocate for these digital skills, especially among persons with disabilities, because not everyone has not everyone has access to these facilities, which is quite unfortunate, and it ends up making persons with disabilities miss out on different opportunities that we have in government and in the private sector.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for actually raising a very important point that I think we'll go back into as we continue that conversation on accommodating people with disabilities for them to also have access to opportunities. Over to you, Nazrin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. So I work very closely with women in the informal sector who have very low literacy levels. And for me, what I've seen is that women have the potential to transform their lives, to get themselves out of the economic insecurities and vulnerabilities. And most importantly for our work is that success really means that women having these opportunities to participate in the economic development. And as my colleague has mentioned, a lot of times not having the right skills gets you excluded. So to ensure they feel more economically secure, less vulnerable to physical, sexual, or emotional harm, and more knowledgeable to make empowering decisions about their resources, the environment, the investments. This is why we feel women need to have access to opportunities that are available on the digital platform. And the impact that we're already seeing is that we're creating an environment where it's easy for women and girls to do business. We have a community of members who form and register groups in their markets. So it's easy for them and other women who want to start similar businesses to plug into the ecosystem and have mentors and peers just from within their own community. And I think the beauty of that is that they're able to learn from someone with real life experience instead of learning by making mistakes. So Afrikapu has created an environment for marginalized, underserved, underrepresented women in vulnerable communities to come together, to learn, to mentor each other, and then start sustainable businesses and other income generating activities.
Thank you so much, Nazrin, and also for bringing up the point on mentorship on the platform, because it's always good for people to learn from one another and see what's working and what's not working, and more so for people from very underserved and underrepresented communities. So thank you again for your work. Hadija?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hadija. I'm a program manager at Google. And as the moderator said, I've been managing the Digital Skills for Africa program in East Africa for the past 3 years. For me, what the internet has done is leveled the playing field in Africa in terms of accessibility and opportunities available for both men and women. What I want to add is a personal story of my own, where I grew up in a low-income area, a community that is mostly marginalized, and because of the internet and the ability to be able to understand how to use the internet, I was able to apply and go to a university outside my community, which would have been something that was impossible maybe 5 years before I joined university. And what that has been able to do is not only create value in my life, but my community as well as my family members, because now they see what is possible. And being able to see that, seeing that someone can be able to do that, it has been a very impactful experience for me and people around me. And I think that because of the internet and that availability and access, it has been able to open doors and opportunities for myself and people like me. Yeah.
Wow, what a powerful story. Internet opened opportunities for you, and now you're using the same internet to open opportunities for other people. Thank you so much, Adija, for sharing your story. And to Fatma, why did you choose to start learning about working online, and what impact has learning and working online made on your life? I think you're the only beneficiary of the Kazi Remote, which is a partnership between IREX International and the Ministry of ICT, Youth Affairs and Innovation Kenya. So we'd love to hear about your experience.
Hi, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this great team. I would share a bit of my story. While I was in university, I was just hearing about the virtual gigs from my peers, but I really lacked the skills which would enable me to get any virtual gigs. And I'm grateful to IREX training, which has been a big impact in my life. When the COVID pandemic hit, that is when I came across the IREX initiative, and I was able to, I took that as an opportunity to do training with them on how to leverage technology and access employment or entrepreneurial opportunities. And I would say that IREX gave me the skills and way on how to make extra income through virtual gigs. And I'm very much grateful to IREX on how they were able to support us through the post-training support, and also we were able to strengthen the ability to get the gigs. And I was also able to learn more about the sites like the freelancer.com and Upskills, where I was able to get to do some virtual gigs, which would make me have some extra income.
Fantastic. So I hope, Fatima, now that you've learned on the platform, you'll be an ambassador of the program and share the same opportunity with other young, deserving Kenyans across the country.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. To my panelists, so I want to learn more about the challenges that you think young women in Kenya face with learning digital skills and accessing work that depends on technology. And I think just from Fatima's story, you've had her narrate how she didn't have access to, she didn't know how to access online gigs, and she needed a job. She didn't have the skills. And then how this partnership between IREX and the Ministry of ICT and Youth Affairs and Innovation Kenya enabled her to have access to those opportunities and to also be able to earn a living right now. And I hope, Fatima, you're thriving and not struggling. So yeah, to my panelists, can you please respond to the question? Hadija?
Thank you for that. That's a great question. And from my own observation and experience working in digital literacy programs in Africa, one of the challenges that I've seen is access, especially for women and girls, is access to, in terms of infrastructure, whether it's a device or internet itself. The interest is there, but because of economic and social challenges, most women do not have access to even a mobile-enabled phone. One of the key reports that I have read about and followed closely was a GSMA report on mobile connectivity in Africa. And we see that even though more women are coming online, there's still a huge gap between men and women when it comes to going online. We have a bit over 50% of online users being women, but at the same time, so 50% of women have access to mobile phones, but less than 30% have access to the internet. So this not only locks them out of opportunities and access to important information, but also keeps them away from a growing a growing global community that is slowly but surely drifting to more online work. And because of this, it still leaves women vulnerable to poverty and other social ills, leaving them behind in the sustainable goals that are expected.
So for somebody who works for a technology-based company, how can we address that challenge? You've talked about women, 50% of them owning mobile phones, and yet 30% of them have access to the internet. How can you bridge that gap?
It's something that requires all key stakeholders to participate in this problem solving. On the demand side, it starts with the government and the policies around accessibility and infrastructure. How easy is it for organizations to expand infrastructure and internet connectivity in our communities? And by communities, I mean low-income areas, rural areas, and other parts of of our country where people still don't have access to the internet. This is maybe due to infrastructure issues such as access to the internet or power or electricity. And also for organizations who are working in our continent, what are they doing in order to ensure that internet is seen as a basic need and a human right for all users, and not just something that is accessible to people from high income areas. On the supply side, I would say that it's important for us to continue working on upskilling and helping more people understand how they can make the most out of the web, whether it's basic digital literacy for young people, especially students at school level, or it is helping small businesses go online and helping women who are more likely to be entrepreneurs understand how they can leverage on the internet and why it's important to go online. Because most of the time when women are thinking about going online, they have 2 or 3 other factors that are they have to consider before they buy a data bundle. You know, is this a viable option for my business? Is this something that's going to bring value to my business? Is this something that I can afford? Do I have the time to add one more thing? Because most of the time when women are looking to expand and upskill themselves, there are other barriers, whether it's social or economic, that are keeping them away from the internet. So I think both on the demand and supply side, there's a lot of work to be done. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Khadija. And I agree with you that internet is a basic need and a human right for all. And we have to make sure that young women also have access to that basic human right. Nazreen, your work involves really upskilling young underserved women. So back to the question that I asked Khadija. So what challenges do they face with learning digital skills and accessing work that depends on technology? And how have you supported them?
I absolutely liked everything Khadija said, because as a fintech professional serving marginalized women and youth, my unflagging commitment really has been to ensure resources are deliberately allocated to products and services with the most positive impact to the world's most vulnerable women to actually come and fulfill its promise of elevating poverty. And usually when I tell people I'm a co-founder of a financial technology company, they'll look at me and say, really? Who owns the company? Or do you have a background in tech? I actually don't. And most of the tech information that I have, I learned it on the job. And I feel it's really my responsibility to equip women and girls with the right tools, with the right information to fit into what has been long perceived as a male-dominated industry. The challenge that I myself faced, and I see a lot of women facing, is actually meeting the rigid requirements that are set by employers or partners or accelerator programs, and just to have them, to get them to get other people to believe in their abilities as much as you yourself do. And I think like a lot of people have the knowledge, but they lack a way to present themselves. So I feel a lot of times when we talk about digital literacy, it shouldn't only be about a computer or a phone, but it must be bundled with other skills, and young girls must be mentored on communication skills, on interpersonal skills, on building their self-confidence. And I think it's important to understand that when we talk about technology, it's not only about AI and blockchain, which I feel a lot of women kind of back out of that industry because of that fear that, okay, this is not for me, I can't do it. So it's really our responsibility to ensure that all this, when we talk about equality brought about by technology, that it needs to start at home, and that our sons and daughters grow into an equal workforce and are more accommodating and supportive of women taking up these male-dominated roles. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And I totally agree with you also that there's some of these rigid requirements that actually inhibit women's participation in the digital infrastructure, because just by they were set up by the men, they can only be met by the men. So at that point, there's no way for the women to come in and be able to equally participate in such a space. And thank you again for the work that you're doing through Afrikapu and creating opportunities for these women to feel like they're part and parcel of the economy, and they have a role to play in improving their lives, but also improving the overall well-being of the economy of Kenya. And to our audience members, we're going to have a Q&A session, so please start sending in your questions. And to Fatima, as a beneficiary of IREX Kazi Remote Program, I want to know what are some of the solutions that either you or your peers are using to tackle the gender disparity in tech-enabled or enhanced work. How are you creating opportunities for others now that you've been empowered?
I would say that to present my experiences and share my diverse perspective on how to pursue similar careers, especially in the digital world. And the main thing for me was like developing the self-confidence that was needed to access and use the technology. This has built more curiosity about the wider digital sector, and therefore I'm able to access employment and entrepreneurial opportunities. And also the knowledge exchanges between peers to peers, especially women in technology networks.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad that you're very much engaged, so keep up the good work. Nazrin spoke a lot about the technology space being male-dominated, male-faced. And to Elizabeth, what is the role of young men in providing solutions to bridge the gender gap now that the technology space is male-dominated?
Okay, thank you. So maybe if I could just add on the issue of the challenges, because I wanted to speak more on the disabilities bit. I know as persons with disabilities, accessing digital skills is a challenge because of the cost. One of the most accessible devices that is accessible for persons with disabilities is the iPhone. And we all know how much an iPhone costs. Not everyone can afford an iPhone. And another device is the Samsung phone. As again, we all know how much a Samsung phone costs. So not everyone can afford this, especially those with disabilities. Because with accessibility, it's not just about searching online, touching on the buttons. It's also about going online and be able to search easily and accessible and be able to access the information you need. I believe men can come on board and support different initiatives we have on digital skills in terms of having more women in the engagements they are part of, and ensuring these sessions are actually accessible by providing sign language interpreters if need be, if there's a deaf person, of course. And of course, if it's digital, if it's virtual, you don't assume there will be no person with disability. Just provide the accessibility they need so that you don't leave anyone behind, especially women with disabilities who really want to know and engage in digital skills.
Thank you so much, and thank you for raising the cost issues that come for people with disability, hindering their access, and also the fact that we have to be very intentional to create these spaces and include the people with disabilities. So my next question is to Khadija. What do you want to tell decision makers in government, businesses, or communities about the solutions they should support for young women to address the gender inequity in the changing world of work?
What I would like to say is it's important when you're creating framework strategies, policies, when you're making the big decisions, to have gender equality at the heart of these decisions that you're making. Always consider what women women and girls need in order to feel included and to be successfully be a part of this kind of programs that we are creating. I think even though there's a lot of work that has been done in gender equality across the globe, we still have a long way to go. One of the things that I've been reading about is how most of the women in the workforce in 2020 have been affected by the pandemic because more women are working in industries that have directly been affected by the pandemic. I don't know if this is something that people are aware of, because in industries such as the service industry, the healthcare industry, and industries that support people in different ways, whether it's clerical jobs or hospitality jobs, most of the workers and the workforce in those industries are women. So whenever we're making or creating policies and frameworks, it's important to have gender equality at the heart of it, because the challenges that women face most often than not are uniquely, they're unique to women, and diversity and inclusion should have a seat at the table in every decision that has been made on national level.
Fantastic. So just to throw off another question to you, because Google works a lot with government. So what have you guys done in your capacity to be able to address this inequity?
So unfortunately, Vivian, I cannot speak on behalf of Google in this forum, but what I can say in the projects that I have worked on government level, for example, our partnership with the National Youth Service, we have been very deliberate in creating key metrics to ensure that we are reaching certain number of people. In every certain number of people we're meeting, we should have a certain percentage that covers marginalized people, people of different diversities, and as well as people who come from different geographical areas. So in every strategy that we create in programs, just making sure that the conversation is as inclusive as possible for both women and people living with disabilities.
Fantastic. Thank you again for your leadership on that and making sure that your programs are as inclusive as possible for everybody to have access. Thank you. Nazrim, do you mind tackling the same question too?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the economic setup at the moment, technology is definitely vital in solving unemployment in Africa. And at Afrikapu, for example, we see a very huge potential in availing a market for our beneficiaries who are artisan micro-entrepreneurs, and technology is doing that for us. So the e-commerce space, the whole on the rise, the whole of the technology evolution, it's paramount that the government as well as the private sector support initiatives that promote women's economic empowerment, because let's face it, for us to build thriving communities, for us to empower the next generation, for us to have healthier communities, we have to provide the right tools to women who have who have no literacy, who have no access to such information. And more than anything, I feel it's the knowledge. And secondly, I feel it's important that the government does create a conducive environment for the private sector that's tackling the same issue.
So yeah, you raised the point of the government creating conducive environment. What has been your experience working with the government, if you have? And also, what are the right tools that women need to be able to thrive in this space? Because that's something else that you've talked about.
Okay, so I personally haven't worked directly with the government, but then, I mean, except for the taxation sides and all, so I can't talk much on that. But when I look at the women, the tools that they need, especially the women that we serve, these are women who have very low literacy levels. These are women who probably can't even speak English or Swahili. So you find that our trainings have to be conducted by people from within their communities in their local language. So I think more than that is just to kind of understand where they're coming from, understand what their needs are. So have an analysis, because the needs of a woman in, for example, Siaya County versus the needs of a woman in Nairobi might vary, because what we've seen is that in Nairobi, for example, people have access to the smartphones and all that, but they don't have the knowledge of how to best consume that tool. So you find that they might have access to something, but it's underutilized. So I think a blanket tool that we can give every woman would definitely be knowledge and information.
Thank you so much, Nazreen. And to Elizabeth, you're part of the government, but I also want you to tell us what do you want to tell our decision makers in government, businesses, or communities about solutions they should support for young women to address the gender inequity in the changing world of work, or what you are doing in your capacity as the fact that you work in the government?
Okay, thank you so much, Vivian. So I know with government, we have amazing policies, very good policies, but the implementation bit has always been the challenge. So I'm hoping we can be able to implement some of these very good policies we have, so that we can benefit some of these women, and the youth in the community, because the policies are amazing. So what I've done so far, working with the Ministry of Trade, I know I'm not working with the ICT, but I would have been better placed to answer this if it was in the ICT section. But in terms of trade, we try to ensure women are actually part of the conversation on issues to deal with trade. We have the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that is coming up. We've ensured we have actually persons with disabilities, women, and the youth as part of this conversation, because the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement will create a lot of opportunities. And with COVID, we realized we need digital skills, because if we have to stay alive, like basically, because everything is now virtual. So we need these skills for our youth and persons, I always have persons with disabilities on mind, our youth and our women, because with the necessary skills, they'll be able to not just tap into the potential in Kenya, but also Africa and globally. I know with government, there's the 5% for persons with disability allocation when it comes to employment, and also the tenders when it comes to women and youth. So digital skills is really important for them to access these services when it comes to tender issues, when it comes to accessing these government services, like maybe applying for registration of your company, you need to have the digital skills. And I've seen government partnering with the private sector to provide these skills, like Stanbic Bank, for example, to get the digital skills for MSMEs, which is really critical right now at the moment, and for us to grow as Kenya.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you are using your office and platform to make sure that your initiatives are as inclusive as possible, and also taking the initiatives to the women, because sometimes the initiatives are there and they're all good and we all applaud, but then the women who really need them do not know about them, do not know how to access them. Then at the end of the day, we are not really having the impact that we need to have at the end of the day. So thank you again for making sure that women, young people, people with disabilities have access to these opportunities. To Fatima, what will your message be to these decision-making leaders in government, private sector, or even community as a beneficiary?
Ministries of youth, women, and ICT should encourage partnerships with the private sector in order to launch targeted initiatives that encourage women and girls outside of the formal education system to pursue the digital sector. Such programs could be tech camps, competitions, mentoring programs, and online courses that would help these women return to education and could further develop the digital literacy and skills. Also, care must be taken to ensure that these programs are implemented within and outside the urban centers. And ideally, these opportunities should be provided at a low or no cost. And also, these initiatives should reach women and girls who may be far more disadvantaged because of their locations or household income.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I hope the decision-making leaders who are on this session, the team from IREX, you're taking notes and listening to Fatima, because Fatima is empowered and she's out to make sure that many other young girls like her are empowered. So listen to her. And to my panelists, so the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 8 focuses on promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, as well as full and productive employment and decent work for all. How can young people lead in helping achieve this goal? Khadija.
Thank you, Vivian. That's a great question. I think one way to be able to do that as young people and as a community is be involved in understanding what the SDG goals are trying to achieve, and also the involvement also includes holding our leadership accountable and making sure that whatever decisions that have been made on national levels are aligned to the SDG goals, specifically around decent living and economic empowerment. So first I would say, yeah, holding leadership accountable and also as ourselves, women and young people, understanding and being aware and knowing that people in a global scale are having these conversations. What does it mean for our communities? What does it mean for me, myself? Why is it so important that people are sitting together in these big forums talking about these issues? And having an understanding of how the SDG goals affect or rather shape the way we live on a national level is very important, yeah.
Thank you so much, Khadija. You've raised key points on holding our leaders accountable, localizing the sustainable development goals so that the people on the ground can understand why these conversations are important and the role that they can play in shaping those conversations for impact on the ground, and also the national framework linking to the bigger global agenda, which is the SDGs. Thank you so much. Elizabeth? Okay, while we wait for Elizabeth, oh, sure, she's in.
So in terms of SDGs, I'm trying to understand. Okay. Kindly repeat the question.
Okay, to the question, so I was talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 8 that focuses on promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, as well as full and productive employment and decent work for all. So how can young people lead in helping achieve this goal? So how can young people lead in achieving SDG Goal 8?
We always entrepreneurship. So we should, as young people, we should be entrepreneur. Instead of just waiting for us to be employed, we can always start our own businesses and be our own bosses. Basically, that will just open up this SDG. I believe with entrepreneurial skills, you can also impact other young people who actually are in the job market. And really, because right now we know so many people lost jobs during this COVID-19 period. And I believe with the entrepreneurship skills and entrepreneurial mindset, we can have more people in the employment workforce.
Thank you so much. So young people taking charge and creating opportunities for them and themselves and other young people too. So Nazrim, do you mind delving into the same question too?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just so important that young girls start understanding that their contribution is very crucial to the future success of their families, their communities, the entire nation. Because as long as, I mean, I grew up in Mombasa and I know some of the panelists are from there, and it's a place where women seldom have a voice. You know, it's like women are always challenged. And as long as society continues to associate leadership with masculinity, female leaders will continue to be judged more harshly. And I mean, even if they outperform their male counterparts. So I think this should start from just within our own homes, within our communities, that we encourage girls to understand that they're capable, they're important, and they need to go out there and explore their dreams. And secondly, I think it's so important for organizations to work together. There's so many organizations out there in the private sector, in the government, that are working towards the common goal of ending poverty and gender equality, especially in the vulnerable communities. So I think instead of competing against each other, it might be a much better idea to collaborate and work together. And I believe that cooperation will certainly be a lot more valuable to us as organizations, as individuals, and the communities that we are serving.
Thank you so much, Nazreen. You've really reinforced the part on organizations working together rather than working in silos and feeling that we need to compete. We need to work together so that we can learn from one another and also share the resources, because resources are very limited, more so when it's resources targeting women empowerment, access to opportunities and whatnot. And also just reminding our young girls that they're capable, they're important, they're leaders in their own rights, and they have a role to play in shaping the conversations around access to opportunities, but also around our economies. Back to our audience, we'll soon be going into the Q&A session. I see the questions coming in. Please keep sending them. You can direct them generally to all the panelists or direct to specific panelists. So Fatima, I would like you to please address the same question. How can young people lead in helping achieve UN Sustainable Development Goal 8?
I would say that we should feature successful women from the digital sector so that they can able to share the diverse perspectives and how they're able to pursue careers in the digital world. I think the young girls will be able to draw inspiration from them. And another thing about technology, it's not just about like having a computer. I think the main thing is about also developing the self-confidence that you need to access and use the technology. By having like the self-confidence, it will help you build curiosity about the wider digital sector, and therefore you'll be able to access entrepreneurial opportunities and even employment.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for that elaborative answer on you become what you see. And for most of us, I strongly believe in that, and I believe majority of us do. So it's important for us to showcase women in the digital space and the work that they're doing so that they can serve as an inspiration for others. And also in investing in the self-confidence skill for young girls so that they can know that they're capable, they can know that they have a role to play. Thank you so much, Fatima and the other panelists. So I have a question for you that just needs a one-word response. Use one word to describe what you see when you hear the future of work is female. I'll start. It's timely. Elizabeth?
It's inclusive.
Fatima?
Opportunity.
Hadija?
I was going to say inclusive, but I'll add as economic inclusion.
Thank you. Nazreen?
Transformative?
Sorry?
Transformative.
Transformative. So transformative, economic inclusion, opportunity, inclusion, timely. Thank you so much. And now we'll open our floor to the Q&A. And The first question actually goes to Elizabeth. You talked about governments having good policies, but the implementation is a problem. So what are some of the blockers to the implementation of these policies by governments?
Okay, so some of the blockers, I know it's bureaucracy. In government, we have very bureaucracy system. So hopefully this won't land me to problems. So when I joined government in 2017, bureaucracy was actually a bit of a challenge for me, but I know we have to follow certain protocols in order to ensure some of these policies are implemented. Another challenge we have in government in terms of the policies is politics, of course. If you want to push your policy, you of course have to know the politicians. You need to be a politician. A very strong politician can actually advocate for your policy to be pushed in parliament or to be implemented out there. So that's also a bit of a challenge on our end. And the last one is the bit on what's the word? So really we have good policy, but government has not really been following up to ensure people are actually implementing some of these policies. If we make these people accountable, maybe if there's a certain law that punishes these people, maybe there's a certain, you pay a certain amount of money for maybe not implementing something like a penalty, I'm sure people will actually implement some of these good policies we have.
Wow. I think that's a very interesting solution on the penalty. I mean, I'm all for it, and I would love to see it being implemented, because then I feel like we'll have so many policies being implemented that will be very impactful to our communities. Anybody else who wanted to chime on that? Yes, Adija.
Yes, I wanted to say, I think one of the key challenges that I've seen from my observation and experience is the quality of data to support the importance of for the work to be done. So if we can be able to also increase the quality of data as well as finances in terms of investment in research in the work, to be able to show people this is why this kind of work needs to be done, it's very important. I think that's also a missing piece currently at national level, accessibility to quality data, as well as in terms of data collection, in terms of raising the standards of research, as well as financing and investing in research work at national level. That would really help in interventions as well.
Thank you, Adija, for bringing up the issue on data. I think it's a conversation, everybody's talking about data, but then when you come to the doing part, there's still very little that's being done around what you talked about, the collection, the financing, and also the accessibility of that quality data, and also that data that can be easily understood to inform a decision. So I totally agree with you, and it's a key challenge that we still continue to face. So one of the biggest barriers to women are issues with peer pressure or social media and negative online portrayal. So how do we address it and support girls and women? Nazrim.
Okay, that's actually a very interesting question. And as much as I'm not working with women and girls who are mostly, who even have access to social media, I have seen it among my peers, among my partners, that yes, there has been a lot of negative influence on that. But I also feel there has been some positive influence. And I'm not sure how to control that, but maybe this whole the introduction of taxes on your social media lifestyle might be might be interesting. But on my part, I feel it's just very important for people to understand that what you see is not always the case.
Okay, I see Fatima smiling. Do you want to chime on that too?
Yeah, I think I'll add to what Nasrin said. The social media can have positive impacts and also negative impacts, but I think on my side, it has been more having more positive impacts than the negative impacts, because I've been able to use the technology and the resources I have positively in order to build myself and more of networking.
Fantastic. Hadija?
I would like to say that it's important. First of all, I'm a supporter of women on social media. Full disclosure, I'm a Beehive, which is a fan base for Beyonce. I am a full believer that women empowerment is the way to go. So I support women on social media, and I think it's a great way to be able to help women, whether it's used through their businesses or their online profiles. One thing that I was able to do personally is I took up a class on self-promotion, which I also facilitate now. And what I've been able to do is help other women understand that they can use social media as a tool to positively self-promote themselves, whether it's their businesses or their workplace. So the social media can be a great tool, even though it's a big challenge for most women. We have seen cyberbullying going up in the recent years, and also the challenges that most women face, especially women in leadership in social media platforms, where they're being bullied because they are visible women who are decision makers. So they find themselves being trolled or bullied on social media. I think it's important for social media platforms and organizations that run social media platforms to be aware that cyberbullying is a huge problem that is hindering most women from being able to positively interact with people on social media, and locks them out from a lot of important conversations online. Yeah.
Thank you, Hadija. Elizabeth?
So social media is quite important. So personally, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I think I'm in every platform on social media, because I believe with social media, I was able to get opportunities that I never would have gotten if I was not there. So in terms of providing opportunities on social media, I know right now we have WhatsApp where we share opportunities, like job opportunities. I know when I applied for Mandela Washington Fellowship, I actually got that information from social media. People were sharing it, not just on WhatsApp, but on Facebook, Twitter, it was all over. So with social media, you can actually gain a lot. You just need to learn to control, not to, okay, of course, not to be an addict, because you can end up being on social media more and not be productive in your work. So I believe social media is quite important for our women. And I know we had an opportunity for women with disabilities when we were doing our economic empowerment, and not all of them were on WhatsApp. And it was really quite a challenge to share some of these opportunities because of them not getting access to these digital platforms, like even the laptop, having even just a smartphone. So social media is quite important.
Thank you so much. And then I have one question for all of you. So we talked about, Nazrin, we talked about some of the skills, some of the tools that young women need to have access to be able to participate effectively in the digital economy. Now what are some of the skills and training that young women in Kenya need to seize the opportunity on technology? And also, where can they have, or can they get access to these opportunities, the training, the skills and the training?
Yeah, I mean, for the skills, for me, what I feel has been most important and still seems to be lacking quite a bit, especially working with micro entrepreneurs, personal skills and communication skills. So being on the e-commerce space, I think this is a new culture. Well, not really new, but it's just come to light a lot more after COVID, is that a lot of people are trying to shop online. So there's so many new online businesses popping up, and the women or girls might have some brilliant products, they were very well informed in how to create the social media posts, but then they lack the communication skills, the interpersonal skills. So you end up losing clients. I've personally stopped working with a lot of businesses because I didn't like how they handled me online. And you may be aware that people handle you, like, for example, you walk into Maasai Market or any local business, they will handle you. I don't know what they say, something they'll handle you how you look, pretty much, yeah. So unfortunately, with social media, you don't have that. With online shopping, you don't have that. And I learned something very interesting the other day, is that when you find certain online shops, for example, would write DM to buy or DM to order, and our trainer actually told us, don't deal with such businesses, because what they do is they'll go onto your profile, check out what you look like, and price the product accordingly. So I think these are things that women need to learn, that run your business like you would a brick and mortar business. Understand how to communicate to people. I mean, I personally also get frustrated when I ask someone, for example, how much is this? So whenever I need to buy something, I write a couple of questions. They'll respond with a one-word answer, which doesn't even respond to all my questions. So really just understanding things beyond just having that digital skills. And there is something Fatma has been talking about, and I think it's brilliant, just giving them that confidence and them understanding that there is opportunities. You don't need to boil an entire ocean. Work with what you have, which is mostly your drive, your networks. I think a lot of people are willing to help, but you have to know how to ask for that help. For example, when you look at LinkedIn, there's so many opportunities. There's so many brilliant professionals who can mentor young girls, who can offer some kind of support. But then, a lot of people will reach out with, for example, a hi. I think it's so important that to get direct to the point, just know how to communicate. Let them know that, hi, I'm reaching out to you because, I need to discuss this with you, just a one-liner, two-liner. So I would say for me, the top things would be communication. In terms of tools, it's knowledge before anything else. They have to understand what they would do with those resources before they actually get them. And I think for businesses like our own and the governments and other businesses in the private sector, is just be willing to take a risk and give that girl an opportunity, regardless of what their academic background is like.
Thank you so much. Some of the skills that you shared, I've noticed that are part of the skills that IREX, in their partnership with the Kenyan government, are working on for the Kazi Remote initiative. So I think Fatima will agree with me that some of the skills that you actually highlighted are some of the skills that she also learned during the program. I know we are almost running out of time. I have one question for all of you, and I'll start with Hadija. Do you mind please sharing an example of your proudest moments in supporting young women and girls to learn and access digital work opportunities?
Actually, I have a couple, but let me think of one. One would be the launching of the Google Impact Challenge for Women and Girls in Africa. That was a major campaign I was a part of this year, where Google had created a fund to enable women-led and women-supported organizations have access to grant funding to help them grow their programs and the work that they're doing in communities. So it was a $25 million fund, and even though it was a global fund, the stats show that Africa had the highest number of applications after the USA, which was very exciting for me because the campaign required a lot of input and a lot of work to ensure that the information reaches the right people across Africa. So yeah, that's something that I'm very proud of.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great job. And I'm so glad to know that African women applied more in comparison to other people across the globe. Elizabeth?
The most project, it was the economic empowerment of women and girls with disabilities in Kisumu and Busia County. This was a grant we won by the Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund, which was sponsored by the US State Department. So basically, one of our activities was to empower these women on digital literacy skills. They had amazing products, amazing business ideas, but when it comes to taking their businesses online, like in the Jumia, it was really quite a challenge for them because there was the issue of trust. You know, when you take your products online, there was the issue of how do I get my money? How will I get customers? So we had to really do much of an education on the digital literacy and partnered with some of organizations that actually do digital literacy to ensure the products of these women are actually in the online platforms like Jumia. And the impact so far has been amazing. We can see some of these businesses actually going and growing and expanding. So yeah, that was the best project ever for me.
Fantastic. And I'm glad that it was in Kisumu and Busia. Kisumu is my hometown. So that makes me very happy to know that my people benefited from your services. Yes, Nazrim.
For me, I think this was a very small moment to a lot of people, but for me, it just meant a lot, where one of the first beneficiaries that we onboarded ended up, got a baby and named her after me. So actually she's in CIO, so her name is Nasreen Apio. Wow. I think what I found very interesting was the fact that, you know, because I asked her, did you just like my name? She says, no, it's because you completely transformed my life. And at that point, when we, you know, when we started working with her, we provided her with a productive asset, a sewing machine, to start a business. And from there, her income grew, and she ended up starting another business, another income generating activity. And then she even started a business for her husband. So, I mean, when I look at such situations every day, it really can be more rewarding for me to be working every day with women that remind me that, you know, that they have dreams, not just for themselves, but for their kids, for their next generation. It really reminds me of what a powerful woman my own mother is, for making sure I had access to education and opportunities that she never did, and for really teaching me that once I've walked through that door of success, it's my responsibility to kind of reach back and give other people the same chances that helped me succeed. And I think that's what I actually live for every day.
Oh, thank you so much, Nazrim Apio. Fatima.
I think the biggest achievement for me was being able to share my knowledge, which I got from IREX training and Kazi Remote, to my peers, especially in my area, that it was possible to make extra income or get work through the digital sector, and also the entrepreneurial opportunities that are there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fatima, Elizabeth, Adija, and Nazrim, for your invaluable insights, and also for the incredible work that you're doing in the communities. I wish we had more time to continue learning from you, continue learning from your initiatives and everything that you're doing on the ground. So a round of applause to you all for sharing your time with us. And I hope that this is not the end to this conversation. We'll continue with it online and in many other various forums. Thank you again. And thank you so much to IREX for the platform.
Thank you. I just want to say thanks once more, even to yourself, Vivian, for moderating that panel so well, and for all your contributions. Really, so many interesting things that have been shared. I mean, you know, starting with even sharing that, you know, only 30% of women have access to internet. And this is where in a country where we have quite a high percentage of mobile penetration even. I like the idea of making internet a basic right to even what you shared, Nazreen, about when we talk about technology, we also need to talk about the skills that support that. For example, we may have, and this was also validated by what you shared, Fatma, like you may know about opportunities, but if you don't have the confidence to apply for them, will that be helpful? So, you know, looking at, you know, across both technology and skills, I think that was really helpful. I was quite, you know, I found it interesting, Elizabeth, and thanks for sharing that policies are there. And the question is, how do we, you know, how do we implement those? And as we were talking about even SDG 8 and one key thing being collaborations, it was also in my mind, I wonder how we can collaborate with government to support them to implement the policies that they have. I can't really go through each and everything that was said, but there was so much important and insightful information. So just want to thank all of you again for such a fantastic job. And so I want us to, we still have, this is not the end of the session, we still have an informative session ahead of us. And to take us through this, I'll be inviting Sega Belacho. So Sega is a technical advisor at IREX, and this is on youth economic opportunities. And so she's going to be taking us through and speak on IREX's work on employment globally and how you can get involved. Over to you, Sega.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. I hope you will join me now in sort of the continued learning in this session. At IREX, we are a learning organization, and we have some resources that are very related to the conversation that happened today that we wanted to highlight and to share with you. So I will actually share a slide deck. It will also contain information on how you can reach out to us at IREX to get in touch with some of the people you heard from today, and to get in touch with some of the people that have been involved with working on the resources that I will share with you. So the resources are learning and knowledge resources, and they are directly related to the theme of this event, the Youth Economic Opportunities area. So youth economic opportunities and learning, strategic learning around that is a strategic priority for IREX. And we aim to equip youth serving institutions, including implementers, donors, and policymakers, to have greater impact while supporting youth to make successful transitions from learning to earning. So pretty much a lot of what we've been talking about today. And how we do that is we strengthen capacity and innovation in this area by creating knowledge, learning, and testing innovative resources and models. And those approaches and models aim to understand and build from the lived experiences of young people, some of the people we heard from today, but also the lived experiences of the people, the actors in the enabling environment. So some of the individuals like Elizabeth, who works within the government, and other education leaders. So I'll share with you some resources, next slide, here that highlight what resources that you can use. And it's an invitation really to our participants here to learn with us. We are inviting you to utilize some of these products and tools that have been developed so that you can test them for yourself, use them to strengthen your own impact related to youth economic opportunities, and then also engage with us to give us feedback and to also share back your learning with us. So the first one has been highlighted multiple times already, and it's the Skills for Virtual Gigs initiative. The Skills for Virtual Gigs initiative was implemented in Mombasa, and Fatima was a part of that. And the pilot model aimed to understand how we might equip young people to succeed in virtual gigs, what are the skills we can equip them with, but then also how might we equip those same youth to use that experience for long-term professional success. So what Fatima referred to as the confidence that she got to continue on in this digital career, whether it be with virtual gigs or otherwise, is part of this model and the training that was implemented. So we invite you actually to utilize both the case study and the workbook that highlights and incorporates step-by-step guides for implementers to test out this model for your own community, for your own organization. We just ask that you connect back with us and let us know what you have learned. The second initiative that I would like to share is a report that we collaborated with a Kenya-based organization on related to learning for connectivity. And that initiative aimed to answer the learning question, how might we work with hard to reach communities and local innovators to co-design digital education ecosystems that are resilient to future shocks. So there are some very specific and concrete takeaways and recommendations that came from speaking to the caretakers, the education leaders, and the teachers who had to navigate the COVID shift and distance learning during COVID that we invite you to draw from and to learn from. And so that will be coming soon in January. So we will be sharing links with you on our last slide, where we'll both invite you to share your feedback on our initiative, but also to give us your contact information so that we can share these resources with you. The third initiative that I would like to highlight is a research initiative, a design research initiative that aims to understand the authentic lived experiences of youth. How are youth navigating the journey of going from learning to earning? We've just completed the desk study, and we are now in the process of the ongoing field study that engages young people in 3 countries, Guatemala, Kenya, and Iraq, to lead in interviews and focus groups, as well as a separate quantitative study that will reach 200 to 300 youth in each of those countries to help us gain a deeper understanding of the lived experiences of young people. I'll share a little bit more about this research now so that you can get some of the framing for how we're going about doing this research. And this is an invitation for you then to reach back out to us to give us your feedback on this research design. We understand that there are many of you here who are practitioners and experts, and so we would love to hear from you on how the design approach, the research design approach, resonates with your work and how it might add value to you. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this research initiative that I mentioned is a design research initiative, which means that it is being conducted to inform implementation. And the research question we're trying to answer is, what kind of career support is needed to help today's youth succeed in their school to work journeys? So we're interrogating the lived experiences of young people. The ILO recently published in 2019 a study that showed that a large majority of young people, on average, it takes them about 11.6 months to get to stable work. This might be different, it might be much longer, or some may not even secure stable employment. For instance, in Africa, about 95% of African youth are working within informal, not formal, stable employment. So we are interrogating the lived experiences of youth to understand what are the gaps in support. Next slide. And our initial study has allowed us to see that experts, and traditionally we have understood and interrogated this journey that young people go through from learning to earning based on an ideal, what you will see in the top of this image, what people the way people think it looks. There's this expectation that a lot of young people are also exposed to, that they finish school, they immediately get some sort of work, and then they have a progressive, linear, upward moving journey in their work experience. The reality is vastly, vastly different. As I mentioned before, about 95% of African youth, it's anticipated, are actually not in full-time formal work, but rather experiencing informal work. In addition, the ILO recently, in that report that I referenced, discovered that the reality is that young people are going through diversified and arrays of fluid, complex, difficult journey, how it can also look. So the next image, but you might imagine some of the things we've been hearing in this panel, right? Some people are now exploring e-commerce. Some women are going through entrepreneurship. There are people who are working different kinds of job at the same time. There's the opportunity to do remote work. There's backward movement, forward movement, lots of challenges. And so as the ILO's report states, the fact that we focus just on one linear journey might have actually limited the impact of our support models to young people, and also the support models that are engaging the employers and the demand side. So we recognize that there might be some limitations to just looking at this one linear journey. And our research, the Understanding Youth Learning to Earning research, is trying to understand what is the actual reality. So next slide. To conclude, I invite you now to utilize these links. The first one, bit.ly feedback L2E, to give us feedback about this particular research design based on your own experiences. And then the second link, to access the Skills for Virtual Gigs case study and workbook that you can use to implement the model that was implemented in Mombasa, to test it out for your own organization. So thank you for learning with us, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you so much, Sega, for sharing all those opportunities and the amazing work that's been happening, as we try and understand school journeys, school to work journeys, and how we can better support young people. I really hope you'll be able to give feedback. We appreciate feedback and your input, and I hope you'll be able to find the resources we have useful. And so now I just want to also take the time as we come to the end of our session today, just to thank everyone for attending, from our moderator, our panelists, and all of you, the good questions you're asking, getting to see how we can all work together. I really like the idea of collaboration that came up in this session. But I just want to say a big thank you. If you are doing this in person, I'd love us to all give each other a round of applause. And so to just close us off, I'd like to invite Bonti once again, and thank you so much for your attention. I've had a good time moderating this session.
Thank you, Tsaga and Vivian, for moderating today's session on behalf of IREX, along with Sylvia for your remarks, as well as other dynamic speakers, Elizabeth, Nisreen, Khadija, and Fatima. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation on the role of technology and how that provides opportunities to young people and young girls, as well as people with disabilities in Africa and specifically Kenya. I think it's important to acknowledge that in many African countries, the interest is there, the dream is there, however, the opportunity is not there. And there is such a huge gap in who has and who doesn't have access to internet, technology, and information. So more conversation such as this is necessary to help women advance technological literacy, for them to also understand how strong and how effective their voices are. If we can go to the next slide. In transition, I want to invite everyone to join us for our upcoming GYEO 2030 solution sessions that's happening the rest of the week as well as next week. You can also find our full recordings of the sessions on our website that I'll be posting in the chat below. And thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, and evening.